The AI-fueled tech rally propelled stocks to new highs in 2024, and arguably no company is more synonymous with the artificial intelligence boom than Nvidia. The chip maker saw its market capitalization surge by over $2 trillion last year, thanks to robust demand for its high-performance AI chips. And CEO Jensen Huang has his eye on the next phase of the Nvidia growth story: robots.
That ability to understand the physical world, the three-dimensional world, is what's going to enable a new era of AI we call physical AI, and it's going to enable robotics. Each one of these phases, each one of these waves opens up new market opportunities for all of us.
Wang says that market opportunity could equate to a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and big tech companies like Nvidia and Tesla are aggressively investing in robotics to make AI systems capable of reasoning and action to bridge the world between bits and atoms. So what's Nvidia's vision for robotics, and what do investors need to know about this emerging technology? On this episode of Growth Stories, we're joined by Nvidia's Vice President of Omniverse and Simulation Technology, Rev Lebaredian, to hear how the AI Titan plans to ignite a new growth chapter by bringing AI into the real world. Rev, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's dive right into it because robotics has really become the buzzword right now in the tech world. And at this year's GPU Technology Conference, we heard your CEO, Jensen Huang, declare that the time really has come for robotics. So why now, and what's different about this moment?
The big thing that's changed is we now finally have the technology to build a good robot brain. We've had most of the technology necessary to build the physical aspects of a robot, the body of the robot, but we were limited in what we can do with these robots because programming them to do a specific task just involved so much time and effort from highly skilled engineers who would have to a whole team of them who would have to program it to do these specific tasks. What we have now with AI, what ChatGPT showed us, is we can now create computers that can generalize to reason about many kinds of tasks and do many things. The same technology we use with ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini to generalize the rules of language and interacting in terms of language can now be applied to the physical world so that robots can generalize in the language of the universe, which is physics.
What's really the opportunity here, and how does NVIDIA view the role of robotics in the company's overall growth strategy?
Well, the way to think about it is, what is the value of intelligence? If you can manufacture intelligence, the AI, artificial intelligence, what is the value of that thing? I believe the whole world has kind of recognized that it's pretty valuable in the way that we're applying it today and where we see it going. Today, we manufacture this intelligence to work as sort of assistants or laborers inside the knowledge space. They work on the internet. They can use web browsers and spreadsheets and these sorts of tools that knowledge workers use. We believe that as valuable as that is, there's even greater value in applying these AIs to the physical world. Because if you were to look at all of the industries in the world, the portion that's purely about information technology, is a small fraction of the total markets for every other industry. IT is about $5 trillion a year in total, the total market for information technology. That's really large. I mean, that's where Nvidia and all the other big tech companies sort of live. But if you look at all the other industries that deal in atoms, not ones and zeros, transportation, manufacturing, supply chain and logistics, healthcare, everything else, that's somewhere between 50 and $100 trillion. So if we can take AI and apply it not just to ones and zeros, but to atoms in all these other industries, then the market opportunity is many times larger than what we're thinking about with AI in the knowledge space today. And that's essentially robotics.
And we can see the investor incitement around this. And can you talk a little bit more about, I think Nvidia is really calling this physical AI, but this idea of robots being a bridge technology and how you see things like generative AI, advanced chips, and the metaverse really all coming together here.
We've been on this journey with AI since AlexNet, which was the first deep learning AI that was born on our GPUs back at the end of 2012. It's been a little over a decade. The first AIs we built were very specialized and kind of focused on perception. They did things like image classification and dealt with perception sorts of tasks. But you had to train them for very, very specific things like detecting cars if you're trying to build an autonomous vehicle, or detecting people in security cameras and so on. With the invention of the transformer architecture, large language models became possible, and that ushered in the next generation of AI, which is generative AI. It's where we went from these more narrow intelligences that can do very specific tasks that were very hard to train for that thing, to an era where we can take all kinds of information, very wide set of information, and produce a model that generalizes. This is the foundation models that we're always talking about. We're currently in the next generation of AIs, which generally the industry is calling agentic AI. This is where we're taking the generative AIs and combining them. We're creating agents that can not only produce and create new information, but they can act. The different AIs and models kind of work together to actually go do a thing for us. So maybe it can help in a call center, or help you go book a flight, or take notes and contact others about action items, so on and so forth. This agentic AI is amazing, and it's unlocking a tremendous amount of value, and it's going to continue to do so. But it's currently limited to the domain of computers. These agents are kind of locked into the ones and zeros that are moving around on the internet. The only actions they can do are ones that computers act upon. What Jensen was talking about at GTC in the keynote, and what we've been trying to explain to everyone, is the same agentic AI is going to pop out of the internet, pop out of cyberspace, and enter the physical world. It's the same exact technology that powers it, the AI part of it, but it requires a physical embodiment. You require a body of some sort, and that's what we think of as robots. So that's happening as we speak. We showed some examples of that, some of the most advanced robotics, humanoid robots, for example. They were in Jensen's keynote and on the show floor at GTC. And we're seeing an acceleration of the development of these advanced robots happening, because the world understands that something has changed. It's now possible to actually build a really, really useful robot, and it's going to bring us a lot of value.
Yeah, and one of those examples we saw was the Groot N1 at that GTC event. Any timeline for deployment or additional details on the product roadmap that you can give us?
Well, Groot N1 is already out. What Groot N1 is essentially a foundation model for humanoid robotics. It's an aspect of the brain that you would need to build for a humanoid robot. We have put in a lot of effort, a lot of expense in training a foundation model for this, Groot, and we provide it for free to everyone. It's an open weights model, along with a lot of the tooling and pipelines that we've built to train it. The idea is that we put these out there so that the rest of the industry, robot makers, robot brain makers, specializations, they can take our base work and build upon it. They can train their own models. They can take our models as a starting point and add to it. And as we do this, we continue to advance it. This is the frontier of what's possible. We're at the edge of research, but very quickly it's advancing. And so as we make progress, we share it with the rest of the world.
And when it comes to that training, Rev, people watching this may not know, but in a previous life, you developed a lot of computer graphics and rendering technology for some of Hollywood's biggest movie studios. And you brought that expertise to Nvidia, where it's now being applied to developing the Omniverse. Can you talk a little bit about what that is, first of all, and how the Omniverse really plays a role into this? And I guess it's just a long-winded way for me to ask you, like, how are you teaching these robots how to act and learn and think on their own?
That's a really great question. With the knowledge robots, these agentic AI and LLMs for these chat models, we're fortunate in that there's already a large corpus of information, large body of data available to us. You could scrape the internet and use that as the raw material we feed into our AI factories, these supercomputers, to produce the intelligence. The way we produce physical AI is similar. You have to gather information, large amounts of it, and put it into an AI supercomputer to produce the physical AI model. Unfortunately, the information in order to do that doesn't just exist. You can't scrape the internet for information about every aspect of the physical world and how it works. And in every setting, if I want to know about the physics, I need a model that understands the physics of my factory, of how the conveyor systems work, how the robots interact within it, how humans interact inside it. That's just not available. That information is not readily available there. And so the solution to this is to switch from just harvesting data, extracting it much like a fossil fuel. You can kind of think of the data that's on the internet as it's limited. There's a finite amount of it that it's like a fossil fuel, into creating a renewable source of data. And for the physical world, that's essentially simulation. If you can build a simulator that's true to the physical laws that govern our universe, you can then use this simulator to generate an infinite amount of data that could then be used to create the AIs that could then operate in our physical world. So Omniverse, the thing that I've been working on now for the better part of a decade, is essentially an operating system for building these virtual worlds that are physically accurate and simulating them so that we can produce the data necessary to train our physical AIs, the major component of our future robot brains. The other reason we need a simulation environment that's physically accurate is even once you have the brain for the robot, before you put this brain out there, before you deploy it, before you have a fleet of robots working in your billion-dollar factory or driving a fleet of cars in your city, you probably want to test it first. And you don't want to test it in the real world for the first time. You would prefer to drive billions of miles inside a simulation or run for billions of hours in a virtual factory to make sure that it works well before you deploy it out there. So Omniverse is for that purpose, for both training and for testing and validating that our robot brains will work properly when they're deployed.
And I'm assuming this will need to be powered using advanced chips. So, how do you see this impacting the demand there?
Well, we think that there's going to be a great amount of demand. The way we see it, there's really no way to build physical AI, AI that operates in our world without simulation. And simulating the physical world accurately is both computationally very expensive and time consuming. So you're going to need a large amount of compute, and they need to be very fast. It's very, very hard to do this stuff. NVIDIA is unique in that our core business, our core mission is to build the most advanced computers for the hardest problems. In order to build robots, in order to build physical AI and deploy them, you need three types of computers, and we build all three of them. You need the computer that's actually in the robot, that's powering the brain of the robot. So we build those. We have our AGX and Jetson line of computers. We also have the drive computers that are in self-driving cars in almost all of them. That's kind of the end of the line, that computer. Before you get there, you need a computer that will produce the brain. You need the AI factory, and that's what the world now knows us for. That's what we're selling billions and billions of dollars worth. You feed these AI factories a ton of data, and that's the raw material that goes into it, data and power, and out comes intelligence that is moved into the robot computer. But for physical AI, as we said, you also need simulation so that you can feed that AI computer with the data, and you can also test that brain before you deploy it out into the real world. NVIDIA is the only company that I know that builds all three of those computers and the software stack necessary to operate them and make them useful.
I guess that goes to my next question then. How does NVIDIA really view its role in producing robots? And, how does the company view its position in the competitive landscape for this?
First thing to note is that we actually can't do this alone. No one company can. In order to build these robots, these advanced robots, do it at the scale that we need for all of the domains we need to use these robots in, that's a collective effort. We need large ecosystems and many companies participating. At NVIDIA, we're always hyper-focused. We always have been. We know what we build, and we know what others should build. And so we want to help the rest of the ecosystem do their part while we go do our part really well. We build the computers. Those three computers are what we build, but then we provide these to others along with all of our software technologies so they can embed it into their solutions, into their applications, into their robots, into their services, and into their systems that they're integrating to take out to others. But the problem we always have is we're not a share taker. We don't go find markets that already exist and say we're gonna take some share of that. We're a market maker. We always enter into markets that Jensen calls $0 billion industries because they have the potential to be large, but currently they're zero. Nobody else is there. We enter them early. We've been working towards robotics now for a decade or so, essentially a $0 billion business, so that we can create this market and help it exist. And once it does, we're in a unique position because nobody else was there. There's no competition in that area because nobody wants this market. We believe that's about to start. That's about to happen for advanced robotics. And so our position in this is to build the computers for everyone else to go actually build the robots and the systems around these robots.
So, as this industry gets off the ground, then how do you expect these robots to be used initially?
Well, there are many ideas for how we can use these robots, especially humanoid robots, which that form factor is interesting because if you can make a general purpose robot brain and put it in a general purpose humanoid body, then you could imagine these robots doing a lot of the things that only humans do today. And there's many places we can use them. We can use them in our kitchens, in hospitals, in factories, in warehouses, and in dangerous places like mines and nuclear reactors and so on. So there are many theories as to where they'll be used first and where they'll catch on. We believe that the first place that they're really going to be used at scale is in industry, and particularly in manufacturing and warehouse and logistics. And that's simply because the demand is so great. We have a labor shortage everywhere. There's not enough people and enough young people replacing those that are leaving the workforce to go operate all of the factories and warehouses that exist today. This is trillions and trillions of dollars worth of infrastructure that we've built already that needs to be operated. And a lot of these jobs are what's called the 3Ds. They're dirty, dull, and dangerous. And they're jobs that most people don't want to do. So we think it's going to catch on there first. But we'll also see. I think there's going to be many places where these robots are used. And I think it's going to vary based on geography, depending on cultural affinity towards robots in the location that you're in and the geography you're in. I think the acceptance of these robots into our homes and in more personal consumer kind of spaces are going to vary. Some places will do it before others.
And when we talk about manufacturing, because I think that's a big part of the national conversation right now, how much of this is going to be those humanoid robots versus, the automation, robotic arms, just industrial type machines? What's the vision there?
It's going to be a combination of all of those. We've had industrial robots in our most advanced factories for a long time, largely in automotive factories. That's where you see them the most. The problem with those robots is that they require you to design your factory lines around them, and it takes a lot of planning and programming with expert engineers to make them do what they're doing. These robots they're pretty dumb. They do the same thing over and over again, regardless of what changes in the environment and what's happening, and they're blind. They can't see. The new kinds of robots we're talking about, the ones that have physical AI, are going to be intelligent, and they have perception. They can actually see and react. So the new factories that we'll be building over the course of of years to come, over the next decade, they're going to be more agile. We'll be able to design the factories so that they can reconfigure themselves very quickly. As the products that we're building in them change, as the quantities and the demand for different products change in real time, we'll be able to readjust our factory lines by having general purpose robots that can adapt quickly to this. So we don't have to create a fixed system with a fixed number of robots doing a fixed set of things. The most kind of general robot we can think of right now is a humanoid robot, something like that, because the most general purpose laborer or worker we have in these factories that can be agile are humans today. We'll see a mix of them. They'll be working alongside these other form factors. And probably over time, we'll see a kind of evolution of the humanoid form into different robots. Maybe instead of legs, you have wheels. Instead of 2 arms, it has 4 arms. And we'll see where it goes. But for the time being, I think what we're going to see is a lot of humanoid robots being introduced at first because we can put them into the factories we already have, and we already know how to use humans with human bodies inside these manufacturing tasks. But we'll start getting more creative and evolving towards different forms as we learn more.
And when it comes to potential challenges or headwinds, What technology requirements need to be solved to scale this technology? Or what do you see right now as the biggest hurdle to building and getting these robots out there?
Up until recently, I would say the biggest hurdle was building the brain. But although we haven't fully solved that yet, seeing the pace at which AI is developing, I believe that that's actually within reach. I think now for scale, our biggest limitation is building the bodies of the robots, actually manufacturing the robots and doing that at scale with the reliability and robustness that we need. The battery technologies, the motor, the technologies, the drives, the sensors, doing that and then doing it at the price points that we need to make this really work. That's probably the largest challenge. For that, we need a large ecosystem. No one company is going to produce every part of these robots. We see like how complex building cars are. No one company actually builds every part of a car. There's tier one suppliers and many other suppliers that do the different parts, and the whole ecosystems have formed around automotive. We need the same ecosystem to form around robotics. And that's starting to happen, but that's probably the biggest barrier.
And so, just to wrap things up, what are some of the key priorities or strategic initiatives that you're focused on this year as investors watch the space unfold?
My total focus is on building the simulation platform to power physical AI, to build the physical AI and test them. So we've been building Omniverse, like I said, for a better part of a decade. We've been building it, waiting for this moment for when robotics is going to transition from essentially research or kind of these science projects into an actual industry. And we believe that's happening this year. This is the transition point. And so my focus is on building the simulation platform that's industrial grade and production grade so that we can actually power this industry and make it happen quickly. We can't afford to wait a few more decades. This has to happen in the next few years.
Well, Rev, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. This was a great pleasure.